Okay, welcome everybody to this international seminar on how to make voluntary local reviews. My name is Ana Maria Vargas. I'm the research director of the Swedish International Center for Local Democracy, and I'm here with my colleague Anna Eklof from the Swedish Association of Local Authorities, and together we would moderate this seminar. Before we start, we would like to ask you to use the presenter mode in your Zoom presentation.
Yeah, the speaker view.
A speaker view.
And hello everybody. As Anna Maria said, I'm Anna Eklöf and I'm at the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. And we're so happy to be in partnership with ICLD and also UN Habitat and UCLG here today for this seminar. As we all know, the local level is key and when it comes to implementation of the SDGs. And that's also why we're so happy that we have 8 cities here today who have chosen in the recent years to do a voluntary local review to follow up on their implementation of the SDGs. And it's a wide representation. So we have Harare from Zimbabwe, Buenos Aires from Argentina, Mannheim from Germany, Espoo in Finland. And then we also have 4 Swedish cities who made a VLR last year. So this is Malmö, Stockholm, Uppsala, and Helsingborg. And you will hear from them in the breakout sessions in a while. And
yeah, thank you, Anna. So besides these 8 very exciting cities, we also have, I see already on the screen, more than 82 participants that come from different cities around the world. And we have designed this seminar in a way that is interactive, so you will also get to speak, to share your experiences in these breakout rooms. And before them, we would like to get to know a little bit about who is here on the room. So for that, we will share our screen with a map of the world. And we would like to ask you to use something that is called Annotate. It's a tool inside Zoom. So if you go up in your screen into the view option and you click the little arrow there, you click what is called Annotate, and there is something called Stamp. So you can put a heart in the city that you represent here today. So try to explore a little bit with this Zoom tool and play a little bit with these hearts, share with us so that we get to know a little bit where you are, which cities are represented here today. It's very easy. You go to the Zoom on the top and you click into view options, and then it comes a tool called Annotate, and then you select Stamp. And from there, you can click on the heart and place the heart on the city that you represent here today. So we are more than...
The hearts is spreading.
Yes, the hearts are spreading. They are highly concentrated in Sweden, which is understandable because a lot of the cities that we invited are here. But we also have people in South America, people in Spain, in the southern part of Africa, in Zimbabwe, maybe in South Africa, in Kenya, we see some hearts, in other places in Europe, in Finland, in the UK also. So it's really a world map that shows a little bit of who is here today with us. We'll take a picture of this map for us to save. And then we would continue with our great speakers.
Yes, we would like now, and we're ready to invite our first speaker for some welcoming remarks. So we have Mrs. Shipra Narangsuri from UN Habitat, who is Chief of the Urban Practices Branch at UN Habitat. And we're very happy to have you here today, and welcome. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna Maria. Great to see you. Great to see Emilia and many, many, many friends in the room. A very good morning, in fact, for those in Latin America, and a good afternoon or a good evening to all of you. It's really wonderful to be here, and thank you for inviting me to just share a few reflections as we launch this really important product and partnership. First of all, of course, a very big thanks and big congratulations to you, to the Swedish International Center for Local Democracy for bringing us here today and for leading the research efforts on VLRs in Sweden. This is very important. You know, this is VLRs have become a real global movement, but we are learning every day. And it's very important that we have you as a partner, hand-holding and accompanying that process. Of course, warm greetings to also the co-organizers, UCLG, our partner in crime on many, many things, the Swedish Association of Local Authorities, SALAR, that have supported these efforts together with Human Habitat. Colleagues, as many of you would know, the voluntary local reviews started to gain traction only a very few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Really, the movement started to build up interest, and today we have 121 VLRs that have been published by 100+ local and regional governments from 34 countries. This is huge. This is exponential in so many ways. But for UN Habitat, the relevance of VLRs goes way beyond this exponential increase in numbers. It's really about their potential to initiate and accelerate sustainable development processes at the local level. It's also about innovation. VLRs are, oops, have I frozen or have you frozen? Can you still hear me?
We can hear you, but your screen is frozen, yeah.
But we can hear you. Okay, maybe now we cannot hear you. Let's just give a couple of minutes to Shipra. She was about to say something very good. And then maybe, is she out? All right. Yeah, Shipra, you're back. Great.
Welcome back.
Yes.
One would think that this would be fixed by now after 2 years or 3 years of or whatever of relying on technology to connect, right? But we are making progress, I would say. So I was saying, I don't know where I got frozen, but I was saying that for us, the VLR story is beyond numbers. Is beyond, you know, today we have 100, tomorrow we'll have 200 cities producing VLRs. That's really only the tip of the iceberg. The main thing is the potential of VLRs to accelerate local development and to accelerate the progress towards the sustainable development goals. The other main element that's of real interest to us is that there is no cookie cutter, there is no straitjacket, there is no template. VLRs are an innovation by cities and for cities themselves. They demonstrate the importance, the centrality of the mandate of local governments and local communities in the achievement of sustainable development. In his recent report, the Secretary General, the report titled Our Common Agenda, the Secretary General actually talked about VLRs and local action being central to achieving the SDGs and contributing to a renewed multilateral system. So I hope that today in this seminar, we will have some of these conversations. We have the honor to jointly launch the research that we've done together on the Swedish VLR experience and the implications of the VLR process for local democracy, along with the practical toolbox based on that research. And I really am very pleased to see this many number of participants, you know, in the room who can learn from the Swedish approach, who can get inspired by the Swedish approach and to start tailoring it to their own contexts and needs. Glancing through the report for us, for me, it confirms very much that VLRs are not just monitoring mechanisms. We don't need another tool for monitoring for the sake of monitoring alone. But what voluntary local reviews are emerging as are levers that can bring transformation from the bottom up, which can improve local democracy, which can improve voice, which can improve horizontal and vertical cooperation. We have seen from the Swedish experience that the VLR processes help to enhance horizontal mechanisms of coordination between the municipalities. And they were very tightly linked to the VNR, to the second Swedish VNR, which means that there is a multi-level ecosystem on SDG achievement and reporting, which is fantastic. The second is that in a city itself, VLRs enhance institutional collaboration. We could be in the global north, we could be in the global south, but we have administrative silos and boxes in every city, in every municipality. But the SDGs and the voluntary local reviews on the SDGs can help break down these administrative silos so that policy making can be convergent and coherent across different sectors. And finally, I think it's very important to see how VLRs have helped to facilitate transparency and accountability through participatory approaches in building shared visions for communities. VLRs are a vehicle to build up a collective engagement and collective embrace and ownership of the global agendas. This needs to be enhanced, improved, strengthened ever more consistently in Sweden, in Europe, across all continents, across the world. This is very important. The SDGs will not be achieved unless they are owned by every single person and every single community. For Habitat, this power of VLRs to enhance, transparency, accountability, participation, local democracy is very important. VLRs have become for us a key pillar of our approach to accelerate SDG localization. And it's not just the SDGs, and I will finish here. The complexity of the crisis we are facing today is unprecedented. The SDGs talked about leaving no one behind, addressing poverty, addressing inequalities of different shapes and sizes. But we load onto that a health emergency, the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, the proliferation and the protracted nature of conflicts. It's really unprecedented. And communities, local governments need to be at the center of any kind of recovery process. Local leadership is central. Voluntary local reviews can be the vehicle to accelerate recovery to this unprecedented, multidimensional, multifaceted, from this multifaceted global crisis. Sweden, of course, is one of the global leaders, so we are very grateful for their support. UN Habitat gets a lot of support from Sweden. We have been long-standing partners in advancing sustainable urbanization, and we are grateful for Sweden's support in localizing the SDGs and the very important work of our key partners such as Global Utmaning, the Swedish 2030 Hub, Mojang, Minecraft, the Swedish Innovation Agency, Vinnova, the Axel and Johnson Foundation, Mistra Urban Futures. These are all our partners that we have worked for decades in Sweden. Along with these is, of course, ICLD. Thank you very much for your tireless work, for your innovation, for the partnership we have with you. And we hope to continue to work with you and with UCLG to advance this global agenda. Thank you again, and all the best for the seminar.
Thank you very much, Shipra, for those kind words and also a very good description of the VLR as a vehicle for moving forward. After you, we will also, of course, welcome in Emilia Sais, who is Secretary General at UCLG, to hear from you. Welcome in, Emilia.
Thank you very much, Anna and Ana Maria, for the kind introduction and for putting this together. It's transmitting a lot of dynamism and enthusiasm. So thank you very much for giving United Cities and local governments also the opportunity to contribute to this opening of the discussion. Thank you, of course, to the International Center for Local Democracy, but also to the Swedish Association of Local and Regional Governments very important partners indeed, not only for this endeavor, but for many other endeavors in the municipal international movement. And the same for you and Habitat and my dear colleague, Shipra. I cannot agree more with her opening remarks. We do talk about a movement, and we do acknowledge that the traction of the movement is picking up, is spiking, and this is really good news. But it is important to acknowledge that localization was already on our agenda before this started to be noticed. And I think what you feel in the work that is being done now with the voluntary local reviews, but also with the voluntary subnational reviews, is that work that was already underlying there, and of which our international municipal movement was very conscious. The fact that if you don't think at local level, you will not be able to act globally. If you don't make sure that you shape international agendas from a local perspective, you will not achieve those agendas. And this shift of paradigm, that you actually think at a local level, that you put communities at the driver's seat, is a very important shift for all of us, which is proving true when we look at the voluntary subnational reviews and the voluntary local reviews. Something that is also very relevant for us, and that we want to commend the work that is being put forward by the Swedish government, but also by the Swedish local and regional governments and all the organizations that are behind the convening today, is that this is not an agenda of the poor or an agenda of the rich. It's not an agenda of the north, of the west, of the east, of the south. It is a global agenda. It's a universal agenda that needs to unite us all, and complying with the SDGs and achieving the 2030 vision is a task for Sweden as much as it is a task for any other part of the world. And that very acknowledgement that is today mirrored in this in this event, it is especially relevant because it has transformed the way that we look at the world, the way that we look at the agendas, and hopefully the way that we look also at policy making, addressing conflict, and many other challenges that we need to face nowadays. So a very important work for us. Shipra has described pretty well, and I very much agree with her how impactful these processes are. How it can impact really innovation and policy making. So what do we want to achieve with the promotion of voluntary local reviews and voluntary subnational reviews? Well, we want to influence things at three levels. We want to influence the local, the national, and of course the international arena. At the local level, we hope that we will enhance transparency, and I agree with Shipra there, that we will enhance the capacity of accountability from the communities towards all the spheres of government, that we will enhance participation and transform participation in spaces of co-creation, and that we will innovate. And innovating includes also defining new service provisions, but also probably new competencies and new areas of collective work. At the national level, of course, we want to influence the national agenda. We want to influence the national budgets, and we want to change the way that the different spheres of government relate with each other. We think that voluntary local reviews and the voluntary subnational reviews can be wonderful tools, actually, to shift the conversation. You have data in hand that allows you to have a different quality of conversation there. And at international level, of course, we want to shape the development agenda. We want to demonstrate the kind of role that local and regional governments need to play there as political actors, not simply as implementers of the global agendas, but as shapers of those agendas. We, of course, want to also demonstrate the close link that you have between the global and the local spheres. And we want to ensure also that the relationships between the different global agendas are understood. If there is an equalizer that we can talk about is at the localization level, it is very hard to make difference between the Paris Agreement, the Sendai framework, the local 2030, the new urban agenda. They are all connected, and showing those connections are extremely important for us. But in terms of priorities for our communities, in terms of protecting this role that local and regional governments has as safeguarding the aspirations of communities, we hope that the voluntary local reviews and voluntary subnational reviews will allow us to advocate for putting equality at the center of the agenda, and equality in every single term. Equality that will lead to a different type of local service provision, which will be organized more around care than around anything else. And also that it will enhance the importance that we give to proximity, to subsidiarity, to making sure that decisions are taken at the closest level possible to the people. For us, the voluntary local reviews and the voluntary subnational reviews need to become the stars of the high-level political forum. Our dream is that in a couple of years, we will start the high-level political forum with the voluntary subnational reviews and the voluntary local reviews, and that actually voluntary national reviews will be submitted based on the learnings of these local agendas. This is our aspiration, and everything we do together here will be contributing towards that end. It can place us in a different part of the conversation. We are convinced that we are a critical instrument for the renewal of the development agenda, of policy making at all levels, but also to transform multilateralism. We all know how hard needed it is in these very trying times for the world. We know we are part of the conversation about the future, and in 2023 we hope to go to the Summit for the Future of the United Nations with a lot of data, a lot of proven innovation that we are drawing from this exercise. So keep going, and congratulations, everybody. Please do count us in to innovate and to advocate with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilia and Shipra, for these inspiring words about the role that these voluntary local reviews have for leaving no one behind, I would say. And that was the aim when we decided to start this research project, looking into these 4 Swedish municipalities, learning from their experience, but also using the previous experience of UCLG and UN Habitat. And that's why we partnered with you, because this report builds on the previous reports and the previous toolbox that you have developed. So we developed this toolbox that is from now available on our website, and it says basic steps on how to start doing a VLR for a city that maybe has never considered to do it, because maybe this is something complicated. We don't even know where to start. It's about data collection, reporting. It's more than that. So this is what this toolbox will talk about, and our researcher would introduce these basic steps or little tips based on the research in the upcoming 15 minutes. And then after that, we will move into the breakout rooms to have really this conversation about more practical tips, so that after this meeting, many more cities join this movement of VLRs. So with those words, I would like to give the floor now to Andrea Siambra. And Andrea, you have 15 minutes to share these tips and ideas that came as a result of the Swedish research, but also the comparison to the other cities. Welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Ana Maria, and thank you everybody for attending this meeting. And thank you, Shipra and Emilia, for absolutely excellent description of where we stand with the voluntary local reviews and the movement from the local governments, municipalities. It was really inspiring, and I'm really pleased of how the philosophy behind your words really coincides with so many of the findings and the work that we were able to do with ICLD and the Swedish municipalities. A big thank, of course, to ICLD for setting up the research framework for this, all the very absolutely valuable resources, and also for the great dialogue that they were able to establish with all the partners that were engaged. Anna Maria, I will try to share. I hope you can see the presentation right now.
Yes, we can see.
Thank you. So as Anna Maria also mentioned, the idea is that we like to think of this research and this investigation into the Swedish case as the search for valuable lessons. But we were not only interested in the replicability of these takeaways onto other contexts. It is really more fitting to what Shipra and Emilia were saying, is the idea that we hope that this process is ever evolving and that we find out about innovations that may give common solutions to these common problems. So even the Swedish case, the north of the north, might be able to learn from how these lessons and these strategies, these tips, these very essential steps are applied elsewhere in this context. So one of the main findings, I don't know if you see the presentation mode. I'll try. Yes, it should be working.
Now we have it.
Thank you. So the main idea is just a very brief introduction on why we chose the Swedish case and how this has helped us come into the issue of why should local governments engage with this tool and with this opportunity. And we noticed how important in this case was the presence of a very valuable enabling environment, and Shipra and Emilia very quickly summed up how relevant it is also for other local governments to learn. The effect on public administration as the authors of these VLRs, and also how it played out for the communities and the territory that were engaged in this process, and that, as we said, are a fundamental part of how VLRs can be successful and how important they are to create and improve and push the movement even further. We come out of this experience with 3 great lessons and or tips as the key steps to engage with VLRs from the local perspective. Valuable cross-level communication, international exposure, and of course, very well acknowledged and reasonable time and resources available. So the main, as Shipra was saying, this movement is expanding. So this map really needs to be updated basically by the day. This is the snapshot at the end of 2021. We had at that time 112 VLRs. They are already grown. They will keep on doing that. And it's for those that have been following this movement since 2016, it's actually inspiring to see the map so colorful, the map so diverse. And there are several items that would deserve research by itself, geographically speaking, socio-demographically speaking. But we were really curious about what was going on in this area because of how busy it was in terms of VLRs, but also because we were looking for explanations. So we made basic observations that we hope might be useful also for those that approach the VLR from the outside or are interested in this tool. So there are 5 VLRs in Sweden. It's a very high national rate for local reports, and SALAR, the National Local Association. National Association of Local Governments has already collaborated with UCLG for a voluntary subnational report. So there is a strong awareness, strong activity. The Swedish VNR, the National Review, and the VLRs came together in 2021, and we were intrigued by this political connection. We saw there was lots of ferment, a lot of activity in the Nordic area generally. We were curious about what was going on in this regard. And ultimately, once ICLD set up this framework, we were really pleased to see that there was a pre-existing openness and transparency and ability to talk across all levels. And there was lots of awareness of the national context and how the country and society itself were approaching the 2030 agenda and the SDGs in particular. This was one of the main takeaways, how important it was that Sweden had provided its cities with a very strong enabling environment. We noticed that the channels between levels, so the ability of the local level to be listened by the national government and vice versa, were pre-existing. So they were already established channels of communication that were extremely useful when they had to plan together for the SDGs. Also, when it came to sustainability policy and everything that is enshrined in the SDGs and their transversality and the importance of equity, fairness, the local democracy, environmental protection, and generally speaking, future of society as a challenge, we noticed that there was a very long established tradition of engaging with the local governments. They were responsible local governments. They knew they had the responsibility to act, and they were ready to be monitored and to be assessed for that. And there is generally the idea that a comprehensive framework such as the SDG that touches on poverty, on schools, hospitals, culture, and the defense of the environmental, the terrestrial and the marine ecosystems, etc. Policies this big were conceptually considered to be a matter of everyone. So all levels were ready to establish dialogue and coordination mechanisms to address the 2030 agenda, actually from a very bottom-down perspective. At the same time, another thing we had to notice in the Swedish case was that everything happened under particular conditions. So it's still a formal process. The VLR, the National Review of Sweden, had to be delivered, and it had to be delivered in 2021. So when we talked to cities, it was true that they were also within a schedule that was extremely demanding. They had little time to provide a lot of information and make it compatible. So we noticed when speaking to cities and the authors of the VLRs, that they really had to be focused, and they centered a lot on how the VLR was making them rethink themselves, rethink the role of public administration in policymaking, rethink the relationship that the SDGs could have on the way the little establishment, the public administration, the community, the territory of a local government was working. So they felt that the SDGs were actually helping them to think of the agenda as a new plan, as a new vision, and that there was an opportunity to make public policy compatible with that. So they really were on board with this opportunity, and they felt that ultimately the impact on de-siloing, as Shipra mentioned, the impact on creating new partnerships, the impact on having a very transversal view of the SDGs, as Emilia said, as a framework for everyone at all levels, in fact, was really working. But inevitably, with the tight schedule, there was also a feeling that the VLR was being a technical tool developed within the public administration for the public administration. Everyone was extremely glad about how inspiring it had been as a process to decide to engage all departments and to have a shared solution to common problems. But this also led to another clear takeaway from the Swedish context, which is that there still was a sort of VLR community gap. So the other very core dimension that Emilia and Shipra highlighted, that is the idea that a very valuable VLR is the one that not only monitors, but also changes the mind, one that teaches, one that educates, so to speak, the local community to rethink themselves in light of the global goals. That was an extremely time-intensive, resource-intensive, and politically speaking, demanding process that the Swedish cities in this case did not meet easily. Also because of the tight schedule that was requested by the process. So there was all four VLRs were satisfied, but at the same time, so to speak, frustrated by the fact that they had to favor the technical part of it, but at the same time felt that something was owed to the communities. For us, at the end, when we were given the opportunity to speak directly with the civil servants, it was also really inspiring that basically all interviews underlined that if they were given another chance, if they had more time, if they were to rethink the VLR process itself, the community engagement, transparency, accountability, and ultimately true ownership, even though through the means that every community has available, be it consultation, be it workshop, be it work with schools rather than public administration itself, or grassroots organization, etc. With everybody's terms, they all perceived that this was absolutely essential to legitimate the VLR and to make it really owned by the community that the VLR was trying to represent. So everyone was really hopeful for the future, making this next step and make it worth in the work with the territory. In this regard, and since we are trying to extract information that it might be useful for everyone approaching the VLR, we think that there is work to be done, and even in the Swedish context, but there are so many lessons and so many examples and good practices that can already be seen in the VLRs that have been published and that have been available for a while. There are several ways to approach this issue, to increase the ownership of the document, and increase participation, and ultimately affect positively everything that has to do with local democracy. We have seen cases in which the VLR has been tightly connected with the policy-making process. The case of Mannheim, that we'll be speaking in the breakout sessions, we had the VLR connected to the work of the city council. So it was a very strong legitimization through the political process. And the people were represented at all times by the public administration that was legitimizing and validating the content of the VLR. There are so many examples of open, inclusive engagement of communities, and the workshops that cities that are very diverse, such as Los Angeles or Sao Paulo, engage the citizens in the actual writing of the indicators that they felt represented their community the most. We had cities such as Beijing in South Korea that modeled the indicators on the local reality and then asked the people for actually evaluating the work that the city was doing. So assessment and monitoring, not just by the coldness of the data, but also by the warmth of the actual public opinion of what the city was doing. So there's a new levels of transparency, so that the policy was out there, and even the citizens were asked to assess the work of public administration in the most accessible and the most open way. And then the VLRs also as cultural statements. It is being more common than one thinks. And one of the earliest examples was in the small village of Shimokawa, 3,000 people in the woods in the north of Japan, that actually became an ambassador for the SDGs. They were able to rethink the public space and public life in terms of a SDG map. And they were able to engage all levels of public administration and education. The VLR of Hawaii that was written, basically making the SDGs compatible with the very spirit of Aloha, and the identity of the islands was being defended, was being perpetuated by the SDGs. The VLRs of Yucatan, and the way that the activities and the initiatives to implement the SDGs were planned in respect with the local tradition and local identity of the regions. But the examples are countless, and the VLRs have been actually a repository of this kind of initiatives and results. So just to conclude, if we were to sum up this experience, the ability to talk directly, open-heartedly with people from the Swedish municipalities, and extract as many challenges that needs to be solved and as many potential solutions to these challenges. It is essential to empower cross-level communication. Higher levels have to be constantly aware, as also Emilia was correctly highlighting, constantly aware at all times of how big, how relevant, and how unique the contribution of local government is, even to national global agendas. And the local level has to be aware of its negotiating power. They have to be aware that they can sit at the table, they can provide unique information that will be decisive to make the right choice when it comes to adapting to the 2030 agenda. It's not optional. It's going to be like that because you have to go through local action for the SDGs to work. It is important that everyone does as much as possible in mutual learning and exposure to others' experience, results, failures, shortcomings, and as a way to make up common solutions that are actually representatives of as much diversity as possible. So it is important that everyone, from the smallest village to the largest metropolis, is aware that the same problem is actually shared on the other side of the world by a public administration that was completely different. And the only way to realize that and to overcome that is to actually sit down, talk, share, and learn from each other. And then full awareness. It's not a step to be taken lightly. And there will be issues of time, there will be issues of resources. In most cases, unfortunately, there will be issues of competencies and institutional dialogue. So it is important for the movement to grow, to include as much diversity as possible, but the movement has to adapt to certain differences that might become obstacles for other local governments to join. So it is important that what Shipra and Emilia were highlighting, the lack of a template, the lack of a cookie shape. This liberty is going to be empowering because everyone will be able to access this opportunity with the resource they have available. And that kind of grain of sand added to the mountain will still be fundamental, not just for the movement that will grow, it's growing and will keep on growing, but also for societies and local government themselves. The ability to open up, to make data available, to educate their own citizens to the fact that they're accountable, they might be transparent, and that the policy making can be compatible with the SDGs. The sooner, the better, because the clock is ticking. This is the decade of action. There's still a few years left, and these years should be used to engage to engage all levels, to cooperate horizontally among local governments, and to increase awareness. I try to make it on time. Thank you, Anna and Maria, for the opportunity. And I really look forward to the discussion with the city themselves, because that's actually where the real thing is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you so much for doing this important research and sharing your results. And we can find the report on the ICLG website right now. And being Swedish, I'm extra grateful for this report and reading about our process, but it's also, of course, learnings for everyone. So thank you.